anytime before. I see a lot of people coming in with brain fog, lack of focus, short-term memory, headaches, dementia, everything that is neurological. It's more and more common. And there's a reason for that. And let's talk about it because it's really important to make sure that we do everything possible to prevent those conditions, because dementia and Alzheimer's disease, for example, Parkinson's, all those big issues are preventable, and it comes down to a good nutrition. So first of all, diet, as you may expect, is the foundation. We need to make sure you have a good diet. And the enemy number one of the brain is, is sugar. So sugar is number one enemy of the brain, so we need to make sure that we address your sugar intake. One of the concerns with sugar is as you eat sugar, it can lead to brain cells death over time. So people don't realize that there's two organs in your body that makes insulin. One, of course, is your pancreas. So pancreas is known to make insulin and hormone like glucagon, for example. So these two hormones are made by your pancreas to regulate the blood sugar in your body. So when you eat sugar, your body pumps out insulin in your blood to bring the sugar down. And then when the sugar is too low, your pancreas will make glucagon to bring the sugar up. So these two hormones work together to make sure your blood sugar stays a certain limit into your blood. If it goes too high for too long, you may be at risk of getting diabetes. And that's why we talk about sugar and brain health, because Alzheimer's disease and dementia and those conditions are called type 3 diabetes, meaning that your brain is the other organ that makes insulin. Okay, you have your pancreas that makes insulin, and then you have your brain that makes insulin. So if you eat too much sugar and your brain makes too much insulin over time, your brain cells get tired, and then you have diabetes of the brain, which is Alzheimer's disease and dementia and all those neurological issues. So sugar is really important to avoid if you want to maintain your brain cells into your brain. Okay, so it's because if you eat too much sugar, then your body become insulin resistant, or your brain, I should say, become insulin resistant. So the sugar or the glucose cannot get into the brain cells, and the brain cells require some glucose to function. So if you don't provide the fuel to the brain cells, so those cells die over time, which lead to dementia and then Alzheimer's disease. So sugar is really the enemy number one when it comes to the brain. And then on the other side, you have to talk about what are the foods that you need to eat. So your brain needs fat. About 80% of your brain is composed of fat. And fat comes from fatty foods like fish, coconut oil, eggs, cheese, meat, and so on and so on. So as a matter of fact, I had this patient who was dealing with a beginning of dementia. She was in her 65, and she came in and she was concerned about Alzheimer's because her mom had Alzheimer's disease at about the same age. So for her, the issue was that she was not eating enough fat. About 25% of the population, 65 and older, requires to eat some fat from your diet. So younger than that, typically, or as you go in life, your body will make cholesterol, for example. Okay, so that's my point, is your brain needs a lot of cholesterol to function. And if you don't eat enough cholesterol at all, like if you're vegan, for example, no animal protein and so on and so on, so your body will make the cholesterol that your brain and your cells and your tissues need. But 65 and older, about 50% of those people actually require cholesterol intake from meat, cheese, eggs, and so on and so on. The reason of that is as they get older, the enzyme, the mechanisms of making cholesterol gets tired, declines, and then you become dependent on eating fat, okay, from fish and meat and so on and so on. So it's really important to consume good quality fat when you are, as you get older. This is really important for your brain. And in that case, in that patient, so we tweak the diet, we increase the fat intake, and the dementia that she started having went away. So everything got back to normal with a good diet. Of course, we cut down the sugar to help with this insulin issue. But my point is that it's possible to reverse neurological issues with a good protocol, which is based on diet mostly. Okay, and then fat is really important to get your omega-3, omega-6, your cholesterol, your saturated fatty acid. So your brain really needs a lot of fat, and it's even more true as you get older. And then we didn't talk about grains, but there's a book that I love reading, what is called The Brain Drain, by a doctor that looked at the brain health, and it demonstrates evidence to show that grains actually is the enemy number one for the brain. So it goes over the different research on wheat, for example, on corn, and so on and so on. So it shows that starches in general typically is not good for your brain function. One of the reasons is those carbs tend to increase your insulin. And again, when you have too much insulin for too long time, you have an insulin resistance going on in the brain, leading to brain cells death. So these are the two major aspects of brain. And then you may have heard of the brain-gut connection. Our gut, some people call it the second brain. So there's more neurotransmitters make in our gut than in our brain, actually. For example, 70% of serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter, is made in our gut. So the gut-brain connection is really important. So my point is that we need to make sure that your gut function is good as well. This is really obvious, for example, in cases of autism. When I see kids coming in with autism, typically the problem originates in the gut. So we need to detox the gut. So we need to talk about candida yeast. So this is the major cause of brain fog. So if you're dealing with brain fog or short-term memory, or you're just not quite focused, most likely you have another growth of candida yeast in your gut. And that has to be addressed with some herbs that are anti-yeast, anti-candida. And then we need to look at toxins that you may be exposed to. One of the most common one is pesticides. Roundup has been shown actually to cause neurological issues like Parkinson, for example. Toxins that we are exposed to is maybe a factor in your concern when it comes to brain health. So the goal is to make sure that your brain is happy with a good diet, and then maybe detox. If you've been exposed to different toxins like mercury, aluminum, arsenic, these could end up into your brain. So we need to detox the brain using some products. And then we have to restore the gut function. And one of the key is candida yeast. And related to that, which support my point I was saying at the beginning, is sugar is bad for your brain, but it's also bad for your gut. More than 95% of people have candida issue, yeast issue. So if you do, most likely you do, you have to reduce, cut out sugar intake. Otherwise, you keep feeding the yeast, because yeast, candida thrives on sugar. So if you cut it out, you actually start starving the yeast. And then you can get rid of the yeast with some herbs and so on, and you start feeling better. Okay, so to recap, make sure you cut out sugar and maybe cut back on your carb intake. Make sure you consume enough good quality fat like fish oil, fish, cheese, eggs, meat, and so on and so on. And then maybe looking at doing a good gut detox to make sure that we restore the brain-gut connection. So if you have any question on brain health, let me know. Thank you for watching. Have a